You want to look good on everything that you put out because you are your brand, and your course is a representation of you and the work that you do. And our guest today is going to help us with some tips about how to make our stuff look even better. So I'm so excited to have on the show today someone who is his own production company and also trains other video production companies to be the best in their business, and just is amazing all around with everything audio visual. Ryan Coral. I trip over your last name. I'm sorry. Ryan Coral. The Spanish makes me want to pronounce it differently, but I'm really excited to have you here. Thanks for being on the show.
Katie, I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So let's start with your why. I think that people who have the visual element, the visual learners and the visual doers, are a very unique brand of people. And I love learning what goes on in your heads. I'm more of an audio person myself. And so as a teacher and knowing the different learning styles, it's very intriguing to me. Tell us the why behind your passion for everything audio visual.
I don't know if it's a passion or a curse, because, it's like I have friends that are so successful in the world of courses, and their stuff looks like garbage. I'm like, how does this even happen? But, to your point, it's really about the content at the end of the day. Having done video, I've owned a video production company for the past 17 years. And so much of what we have to do is our job is to make people look and sound awesome, right? And so that's just, for the last 17 years, it's just been ingrained in me. How can we do this? How can we make people feel confident? And so, I just feel like when we've shown people themselves on video, they didn't want to be there. They didn't want to be interviewed. They see it and they're like, oh, I actually look pretty good. They've got soft lighting and they've got, the stuff in the background is blurred out. And they're like, actually, my voice, I guess maybe it's not that annoying. Actually, most people think their voice is annoying regardless. But when people can feel confident, or when they know that they look good, like there's just like this energy that you didn't know that you had, or that you're withholding because you're kind of like, I don't, do I like, this looks like garbage. It sounds like garbage. But when you know that it looks and sounds good, you're able to teach, I think, at a different level. And when you're talking about, when you're trying to sell whatever it is that or teach whatever it is that you're doing, you're able to do it with a lot more ease. There's not this barrier of like, man, this, my teaching is like 10 out of 10, but everything else, the delivery, the branding, all that stuff is like a 3 out of 10. So I'm going to just kind of kick the ground around as I'm, hope that somebody sees past how bad it looks and is just going to get the content because of what the content is.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that you are empowering people who are the experts, who do know their stuff, to get it across in a way that is even more powerful. Because, we tell people it is, the content is most important. Like your delivery and your professionalism absolutely is a huge factor. And we want to strive for excellence in everything we do. Totally. But we don't let the excellence keep us back from publishing and getting our help out into the world. Yeah. And you guys are filling that hole and standing in the gap for those people who need that extra TLC in the audiovisual space. And I'm just so excited about all that you're doing for course creators.
Well, I will just say, yes, we teach this, but it's kind of like the cobbler. I've worked on courses. I've been struggling with this one, releasing this one for the longest time. And my friend Graham Cochran always says, go ugly early, right? It's the same concept. Like it's the content, like for me, it's like 6 out of 10. Like it's not where I want it to be, but for the person that can help, for them, it's a 10 out of 10. And so I keep having to tell myself, it's real easy for me to tell you like, oh yeah, no, it looks great. Sounds great. Like ship it, like this is great. But then for me, as I struggle with perfectionism for my own stuff, it really is, it's a fine line, but it's a constant struggle. That's why I say it's sort of a curse for myself, at least.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think all of us have that in it. No, like we want it to be, there's a part of us that always wants it to be perfect, to be better. We're our biggest critic, I think. And, it's so easy to get pulled into either it's not good enough or it's not good and it's not as good as I want it. Yeah. And therefore I'll just wait. Yep. And sometimes that procrastination becomes an excuse not to show up the way that we're meant to show up in the world. And I think somebody that's learning from you or aligning themselves with your services doesn't have that excuse any longer. And that thrills me, because you can't help anyone if you're not getting your message out. So
I love that. It is super powerful. If there's anything that I learned in, creating content, releasing courses, doing this work, that is probably the most important thing. Like our videos are never, we can always edit them. We can always do something else to tweak them, to make them better. But at the end of the day, if we really believe in our message and the thing that we're teaching, if we really believe that that can help people, we are doing a disservice to the world by not getting it out there. Like you said, it becomes an excuse. It's like, just put the stinking thing out there, grab your phone, shoot it on your phone, and get it out there. Let people say, this was the worst looking thing I ever saw. But man, the content was actually pretty good. Like, just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. I love it. And I know that you've got a ton of tips in your head for what one of my coaches says, a little hinge that can swing big doors. What are some things that we can do if we are shooting with limited gear or limited tech? If we are doing our course videos from our iPhone or from the family camera, what are some things that make a big difference in the quality of those beginner course videos? Yeah,
I mean, sound, video, light, those are like the three main things. So a mistake that a lot of us make is with lighting. We can if we have mixed lighting, if you're people are like, oh, sit by a window and you get the natural light of the sun coming in, which that's a cool idea, except for if you also have your kitchen light on, which is a different temperature color than the sunlight, then you've got this blue light on one side of your face and this orange light on the other side, and it looks terrible. It is so gross. You do not look flattering. I don't care what anybody says. It's it needs to be fixed. So shut the light off, or don't sit by a window. Use one or the other. The other thing that I think is really helpful is when you look at, somebody's face, look to see the shadows. If I was to step outside at noon and the sun was out full blazing, the shadows that are going to be on my face are going to be really hard and really defined. But when the shadows are soft, if you can see what I look like the shadow under my chin and the shadow on the side of my face, there's no real defined line. It's a transition from light to dark. And that is just really, really flattering. If you ever get professional photos done and you're out with a photographer and it's cloudy, the photographer's like, oh man, this is awesome. It's a big white soft box. So it's a natural, everything is going to just look really soft. And you want your face to look soft, especially as you get older. And so, shooting with some kind of a soft light and with the gear guide that we'll talk about later, one of the things you can get a very inexpensive soft box for 30 or 40 bucks that will cast a very soft light, and you don't have to use any other lights. That soft light is such a key in making your image really just feel natural and look really good. Audio, you can use the mic on your smartphone. That's fine. But if you spend $50 or $100, depending on what your budget is, you can just up level what it sounds like. And I don't care who you are. If your visual looks amazing, but your audio for whatever you're teaching is not good, people there is scientific proof that people just they will check out. They're not going to hear the stuff that you have to say. So as much as I love to create beautiful imagery, I know that when it comes to educating people and having to listen to somebody for a 5-minute video lesson or a 20 or a 30-minute, if the audio's not good, it's one of the worst things that you can do. Last, I don't know, mini tip or whatever, shooting with your iPhone or your smartphone is totally fine. It's crazy what these camera or these phones can do. These phones with cameras can do. I will say that one of the things that people want is they want that cinematic, whatever that Hollywood look is. People always say I love what that DSLR camera does or whatever. And essentially it's this thing called depth of field or aperture, that the stuff in the background gets blurred out. Now, the new technology in the iPhones, they have this cinematic mode where it blurs out the video stuff behind you. So it recreates that. I've seen it when you're moving around, it looks kind of clunky. I don't really like it. It just feels fake. So I like the actual, real camera, real lens, like that deal. But that, that obviously costs a lot more money. If you're sitting teaching, that cinematic mode in the iPhone, and I know some Android phones have this technology as well. That can look fine as long as there's not like a lot of movement. The background can be blurred out. But that's the thing that really creates that feel of like, wow, this looks and feels professional, is when the background gets blurred out.
Yeah, we've had an interesting experience with that too, in that we did a conference once where we printed a sign for the background behind us, and the sign had people's faces on it. And so the cameras that we were using had the thing that zeroed in on the face, and it was zeroing in on all the faces on the background all the time and not on the speaker.
Oh,
and
no.
Yeah, so be careful of that too.
Yep. Yeah. Autofocus. It's looking for the eyes or faces. Yeah. That's funny.
Yeah.
Funny, not funny.
It's really funny. Really funny. What other tips for launching when you have? I know that a lot of us are using now live video when we're doing our launches of our programs. How important do you think it is, if you've got video content in your program, that you have video content as you're launching it and promoting it?
It's super important. I mean, people, when I started doing video 17 years ago, it was like born out of this idea that people have stories, and typically we're not good storytellers. Most people aren't good storytellers, but like, I really believe that I could help people tell better stories so that people would see like, wow, like, even though you might not think that your story is impactful, meaningful, whatever, it is. So I feel like as you are, you're educating people, it's like, okay, I feel safe. I'm, by myself, just teaching, going to record this, and then we'll launch it. Going live or just recording stuff that, with the intention of like, you want to do business with people, right? And you want them to know that you're human, and, evergreen and automating and doing all that stuff. Like, that's good and fine. There's a place for that. But to have the biggest impact, you've got to build a relationship with people, and going live and having the opportunity to interact with people that are showing up too, it's super powerful. And it's especially today, as more and more people are going online to teach and to, create their own courses. Like, there's a lot of competition out there. And the thing is, like, if people could buy my pre-recorded stuff versus, this person's over here, if I said, hey, you know what, I'm also going to build a community, or I'm going to build relationships, I'm going to give you access to me, or I want to interact with you. Like, if I am adding that, it's my personality. Like, this person can have all the best stuff in the world, but if people connect with me and my personality differently, that's going to either draw people or repel people. And so I feel like video has that power to do that. So definitely showing up along the way, I think, is super, super valuable.
Yeah. I love that. And relationship business is where it's at, right? We do want to do business with the person, not the company, not,
right.
It's not just a transaction. It's the start of a relationship. And I think that's super important, that if you're expecting them to want to learn from you, like, they've got to learn from you to get to the point where they want to learn from you, and
Yep.
that takes putting yourself out there and, being yourself. What about the backgrounds and things? Like, we've talked about the lighting and the audio. What are some background tips for when you're doing a live or when you're doing a course?
Yeah, I would say never have a bookshelf behind you. Just kidding.
Because everybody's trying to read what book titles they are.
Yeah,
That's what I would be doing, right?
No, I'm. This is a funny question. It's not the first time that I've gotten it. If you look at my background, my wife was like, hey, let me get you a plan, like, kind of throw some stuff back there. And if you watch YouTube videos, there are trends and things that people do. And, I'm kind of like, hey, if you can create or add some of your own personality with your environment, I think that's super great. I also personally like, if you go to our studio, we've got one of those big white cyc walls. So it's like very plain, but then we have this palette thing on wheels that we can wheel in front, and then we've got paper backdrops that we can add different colors, and then we've got different rooms at our studio that have furniture and all of the things. I would say just be conscious of, like, is the background distracting from my message, or is it in line with my brand and the message? And, you can have fun with it, but also consider, like, are you lighting it intentionally? Because you can shape the light back there. You can focus on things, like the light could be too bright back there and people not see you well. So you got to kind of take a lot of those things into consideration as you're thinking about, like, what is the environment and is it going to be helpful or not as I'm, sharing?
Yeah. I love that. Fabulous tip. For those of you that are recording with children in your home, also be careful of the little humans running around in the background, as we sometimes get them. One of my favorite things ever, when we did our very first live virtual event in 2020, of course, the camera is trained on me, and we were doing this in our bedroom. Mid-pandemic, you do what you have to do, right? So we were doing this in our bedroom. We'd move the bed out. We had the camera up on a stand on the table, and I'm looking at the screen full of faces right here. The camera's trained on me, right? And there's a shot that my husband took from the side of my son is laying on the floor with his feet up on the table and his hand behind his head, and he's just kicking around down there. Like, nobody on the screen could see him and know that he was there. But my husband and I were trying so hard not to crack up.
Gosh, living his best
and those
life.
are the kinds of things, like, that you don't always have to show, but then it's not necessarily always bad to show it either, because it shows the humanness of that, right? And so we were able to take that clip and use it in, like, the promo of our next event. Like, this is a family business, right? We have kids, and sometimes they're laying on the set. You may or may not see them, but they're here, and just being human in that. And I think that's all part of people wanting to connect with the people and know that, you're a real person too.
Yeah. I mean, humanizing your brand just in, like, little things like that. At least for me, like, I align with that 100%. We work with, big corporations and big people when we're doing productions, and, some people are super uptight and other people are like, no, that's cool. Like, let's get that shot of the kid with laying on the ground. And, it really just kind of depends on what is your brand. But I would say that in today's marketplace, the kind of brands that people want to work with in this aspect would be relatable. And you got kids running around. That's relatable. You're shooting it in your bedroom. That's relatable, because we're all stuck, So I love that, and seriously appreciate that perspective. That's totally my vibe.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ryan, for all of the tips that you've shared with us today. Any last words for the course creators who are launching?
Any last words, like I'm about to die? No, just kidding. I forgot, like, one of my favorite tips, because I'm the kind of guy, if I'm going to teach a course, like, I have to be scripted. I try to make it as conversational as possible, but I just have a hard time landing the plane sometimes, as my friend Jason tells me. So I use an app called Prompt Smart, and it is a teleprompter app. I think both for, like, iPhone, iOS, and Android. But the coolest thing about this teleprompter is it is voice activated. So as you talk, it moves. When you stop talking, it pauses. So it's the coolest thing, because, like, most prompters, like, you've got one speed.
They just keep scrolling. You got to keep up with it.
Catch up the whole time. And that's, like, super annoying. But what's also cool is on your phone, you can have the app, and it places, the other thing that drives me crazy with teleprompters is people, if you don't have a proper setup, you can see people's eyes moving all over the place, up, down, kind of over there. I'm reading the words over here. On your phone, if you do selfie mode, the words are right next to the camera lens. And if you've got it a couple of feet away, your eyes, you can't see much movement in your eyes. So I just love it because it feels more authentic, and you can pause, you can look off, in the sky and pretend like you're deep thinking. You can even create, like, words that, like, say, look off and do this. So anyway, that's one of my favorites, and it's super inexpensive. But having some kind of, even if you're creating a live video to promote your course or whatever, to have, like, just 3 words on the screen, that app has been super, super awesome and helpful. But I do have this free gear guide. We've also got a workshop, but if you download the free gear guide, it's at courseproductionacademy.com/gear. You can get all my recommendations. I've got like from very, very budget friendly gear to help up level your production, make you look good and feel confident when you're teaching your course, selling your course, and then I have other kind of, if you're like, well, I've got like this cool mirrorless camera, but I want some bigger, better lights. I do have some of that, like a little bit more expensive stuff, but in my mind, running a production company, all the things on this gear guide are very budget friendly for people that are charging for the courses and the content that they're creating.
Awesome. Thank you so much. You guys go and check him out, courseproductionacademy.com/gear, and we will have that link in the show notes as well. Ryan, thank you so much for your time and your expertise today.
Yeah, Katie, thank you. This was super fun. Thanks for letting me come on and share today.
Awesome. Remember, guys, your message matters and you need to get it out there.
Love that.